Well, hey guys, just out here taking advantage of an incredible day. Just beautiful, tiny little breeze. And this is Project Big 7. This is that Tikka T3X. And I put a Leupold VX5 HD that I already had on there. It's a 2 to 10 by 42. I don't think I'd buy this scope again. I bought it when Leupold first released the VX5, and they had some good prices back then. I caught a sale, I guess, maybe, or something when the scope first came out, and I remember, I don't think I gave $500 for it. I think it was in the fours. Now I think they're $7.99 or something. And the glass is great. When it is zeroed, it holds zero, but the tracking is awful. It's not 1/4 inch. It's just not what I would expect for a higher end scope. But I'm sure people have great ones. Maybe I got a bad one. I don't know. But I don't want to digress on Leupold. This rifle's never been shot. So first thing I'm going to do is it's bore-sighted. I bore-sighted it, but I'm going to get it on paper and just dial it in at 50 yards. And then we'll move to 100. And we'll start, you know, kind of seeing what bullets this rifle likes and just how it shoots and all those kinds of things. And along the way, I'll probably maybe produce a video here about barrel break-in and kind of my thoughts on that. And yeah, we'll just enjoy as we go. So I thought maybe I'd just talk a little bit about how I kind of finished the bore sight, right? So I bore sighted at home with a bore sighter after I mount the scope. And I just have a cheap BSA branded bore sighter. It says made in China all over it. I got it from Midway USA probably almost 20 years ago, 15 to 20 for sure. It's always worked well. It's just always gotten me darn close at 50 yards. But what I do is I come out, and when I'm bore sighted, I come out and I set my target at 50 yards. And I send one, and then usually I can just move that impact to the center and shoot one, and I'm dialed in. And that's what happened here today. So let me show you on the target here the way this turned out. So just ignore these holes that have the black around them. Those were 308 a while ago. So here's the first 2 shots with the Big 7. The one that's low right was the first shot. So then I just moved the adjustments, and it got me over really close to 0. So now I can move out to 100, and I'll definitely be on paper, and then I can, you know, fine tune as I go at 100. But the thing to keep in mind here, guys, is when you're at 50, you got to move the scope double the distance. So for example, I was 2.5 inches to the right. So if we were at 100 yards, right, that's only 10 clicks to get to the left, to get to center. But I had to do 20 clicks here. So because we're only at, you know, 50 yards, you've got to move it twice as far. Kind of seems counterintuitive, I know, but just keep that in mind. So now I'm just going to bump this target out to 100, and we'll just start sending stuff at 100 and kind of seeing what the groups are like. All right, guys, I sent 3 140 grain Accubonds downrange here. They're the 3rd, 4th, and 5th shots ever out of this rifle. I can't see with the lighting what the impacts were, so we're just walking up. And, you know, it's a little bit interesting, my journey with 7 mag. So I ran 7 mag for about 20 years. And then sometime in either late 2020 or early 2021, I sold it all off. I have a good friend that works at a local gun shop. He's been so good to me, and he's an amazing hunter. Anyway, he wanted it all. I sold him everything. My rifle, I sold all my reloading gear, all my components, everything 7mm, 284 diameter, just gone. And then Reloading Weatherby sucks me back into this YouTube gig. And just kidding, Austin. And I'm like, we need to do Project Big 7. So I was starting to scrounge up components, and I was talking to my buddy at the gun shop, and he's like, hey, I still got a bunch of your stuff. You want it back? So graciously, he gave it back to me. I need to square up with him on that, and I will. But I got some of it back, which is great. Good starting point. Here's the thing. This Accubond load are my hand loads from 4 years ago that were gone and now we're back. But I don't have my load data for that load. I have my load data for a ton of other loads, but not this one. I think I know what it is, but obviously that sucks. That's not good enough. So that'll get interesting, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's look at this outcome. So those three right there are those 140 grain Accubonds. And that's getting close to an inch right there. So that's kind of promising. The third, fourth, and fifth shots ever out of that rifle. No barrel break in, nothing like that. And we've got probably just a little more than an inch there. And my second shot, I didn't feel good about it. I pulled it. So we're gonna keep dinking around. I have maybe 10 or so of those. So maybe we'll just concentrate on those today and see if we can get those 140s to get in under an inch. And I didn't bring my chronograph today. Not so worried about velocities. Oh, that sun's bad. And in this lighting, with this light angle this time of year, my Caldwell would be very unreliable anyway. That's a story for another day. So, yep, headed back. We'll send some more of these 140 Accubonds, and we'll see if I can keep driving them in there. While I'm waiting on this barrel to cool, maybe just one quick little tip, and I apologize, this video is kind of going all kinds of different directions, but when you're shooting 3 shots from the bench, what you want to do is you want to shoot them pretty quickly. Now, I don't mean rush your shots, but think about it this way. You shoot that first round and your chamber's going to be super hot. If you chamber the second round and you dilly-dally, that cartridge is getting heated like crazy, and that powder's getting heated, and you're going to see a velocity increase, which could affect your accuracy if you've let that cook in the chamber for a while. It might seem like, hey, you're crazy, Mike, what are you talking about? No, it's a real thing, guys. So I've played with that, and it definitely can change your point of impact if that second or third round sit in the chamber and cook. So chamber it, get dialed in, and send it. Don't rush it. Go through your shot sequence, but don't dilly-dally and let that thing cook in there. Okay, I think we're cool. We'll send 3 more. You guys are probably pretty sick of me yakking while I'm walking back and forth to the target. I don't know. Seems like the thing to do. But, you know, like I said, it's been about 4 years since I've shot 7 mag. Really, since I've shot any larger cartridges. It's just been 270 and 308, 223 the last 4 years. So feels good to be back behind a belted Magnum, and it just kind of reminded me, you know, the 7 mag, its popularity is from so many things, but for sure the recoil is just not that bad. Yeah, these are 140s. I know if I bumped up to 160s, 175s, you'd feel that, but still, it's manageable recoil for a cartridge that's just delivering really solid energy numbers. That's why it's so popular. It's just this ideal balance. 1962, Remington nailed it. To this day, it's still an amazing cartridge. And, you know, if you could only have one cartridge in the West, it might be the one, right? Let's see how this next group turned out with these 140 Accubonds. Who knows? I'm not on my game totally here today, but we'll just see what happened. So there's the second group with those Accubonds. Similar to the first. There's the first. I moved them left a little and then shot at this other part of the target. So that's not quite an inch. I'm gonna say maybe right around 1.5 inches or so. Yeah, so that's inconclusive, right? Could be me, could be the load, could be the gun. We're not gonna know any of that until we get some more shots downrange. And, you know, again, I don't even know for sure what's underneath these 140 Accubonds. I think it's Mag Pro. We'll figure it out. And I think what I'll do now though is switch over to a different load. I've got some 162s with me. I've got some 175s. I have some 140 grain partitions. So let's see here. We'll fiddle with it, and maybe this rifle wants a little heavier bullets. I've had that before. In fact, the Tikka that I sold 4 years ago, yeah, I do regret it. It liked heavier. It did best with 160 and up, 160s, 175s. It never really settled with 140s. Maybe this Tikka's the same. We're gonna find out. Here we go again on a walk up. And these were actually factory loads. These are 162 grain Hornady ELD-X. Precision hunter loads. On my previous 7mm life, I had an awesome hand load with 162 ELD-X's and Reloader 25. And I took a few animals with that load, and it was tremendous performance. I think it's interesting, the ELD-X haters out there, and I'm sure they had a bad experience. I get it. I had great experiences, so I'm just sharing that. And they're very accurate. So we'll see what this liked, whether it liked these factory loads or not in that precision hunter. And if it does, I could pick up some 162 grain ELD-X's and work up some loads. I found that it comes down to the bullet, guys. As much as the powder and all that, yeah, velocity nodes and everything, but it's about the bullet shape, the bullet length, all that different rifling contact, I think is more important. So when you find a bullet that your rifle likes, you can play with velocities, and I have found that generally accuracy is going to stay good. So let's go in here and see what happened with these. There's the 162 ELD-X. The two closest together were 1 and 2. Number 3, I felt go a little low, so that could have been on me. That's pretty promising. That's pretty darn promising with the 162. So just because it maybe likes these 162s, ELD-X's, that doesn't mean it's going to like all 160 grain bullets. You know, an Accubond or a Partition, different length, different conditions, different bullet type. So you have to, you know, you can't assume that. But that's pretty promising. I think I'll send another group, and we'll see if we can pull this in under an inch. And not really able to draw any conclusions, but maybe this Tikka is also going to like the heavier end of the 284 diameter. You know, which would be kind of interesting if I had 2 Tikkas in a row that ended up that way. But here's the thing, right? We've only shot one different 140 grain bullet, one type, the Accubond. And I have a bunch of others. Could work some loads up and see if it likes others as well. We'll just keep playing with it. Hey guys, just another little tip here for barrel cooling. You'll notice I've got the bolt and the magazine sitting over here in the shade. And the reason is I've got a little breeze actually flowing from the rear. So that taking the bolt out just lets more airflow. Having the mag out just allows more airflow through here to cool that a little bit quicker. The sun here on that blued barrel, black, it's a real dark bluing that Tikka uses. Probably isn't helping a whole lot, but with that breeze, it's cooling that barrel nicely. And I just like to wait, you know, and I feel like you're doing yourself a favor to just cool it down a little bit before you keep sending groups. You know, it's interesting. I'd say in the last 12 years, since 2012, but I'd say for sure in the last 4 years, it's been so interesting to watch the ammo and component industry. And for sure as consumers, we don't have all the facts on what's going on with that industry. But it's really been interesting to watch the different manufacturers of ammo and components. And I don't I'm not here to judge them. I'm just here to say it's really changed. And it's been a while since I've been out shopping for components, because I have tons of components for 308 and 270 in my stock. And so going out and hunting down some big 7 components just shocked me, the prices of brass and bullets and different manufacturers' price points. I don't know, you know, I'm sure their costs are up, I get it, but man, these prices have increased on a percentage basis that's just massive. And it's interesting, 7 mag brass is really expensive, so that kind of sucks. But yeah, I don't really know what it's all about. I do feel like these last several years, Hornady has started to dominate, or clearly dominates the market space in terms of components. And I find that interesting. They're probably the winner. Coming out of COVID or whatever, I think Hornady's the winner in terms of availability and overall value. All right, guys, those 3 are that last group with 162 ELD-X factory precision hunter. Not great, not great. Now I'm gonna say mostly I think it's me right now. I'm not feeling great on the shot breaks. Whether that's me getting used to a little more recoil, whether that's just the day. There's good days and bad days for me shooting. I'm not going to give up on those 162s, but that group sure opened up, and they didn't all feel that bad, so who knows. Got one more load here. I might just run a couple groups through and see if we kind of get any conclusiveness at all. But this is a great starting point with this rifle, right? Definitely not drawing any conclusions, but starting to kind of get a feel for it, get a feel for the trigger, and just things like that. So yeah, let's run a different load through it and see what happens. Well, here we go. These were 175 Partitions. These are an old load of mine that I got back. I do know the load. I have my data on that. I don't know why I didn't have that one load. That's unlike me. I have all the data. But anyway, you know, if you said, hey, Mike, you can take any hunt you want in North America. You got to use a 7 mag. What bullet would you use? It'd be this 175 Partition. To me, it gives you the most flexibility, and it gives you the most, I guess, you know, that bullet's going to perform at all impact velocities the same way. If you're hitting something at 2,900 feet per second, just 25 yards away, or something's at 400 and you're hitting it at 2,000 feet per second, that Partition's going to retain 60% of its weight. The front cavity is going to destroy vitals. The rear cavity is going to penetrate. And honestly, that's why Partitions, in my opinion, are still the king of consistent performance. But I know some would argue that a lot of the solid bullets, monolithic, you know, I guess I should say all copper, whatever, perform as well. I don't know about that. I haven't used them, but it's hard to argue with Partitions' consistency. Let's see what happened with these 3 175 Partitions. Yeah, that's fairly promising. That's a little more than an inch. I got 2 of them looking real good, and that one over to the right. I do feel like my 3rd shot pulled to the right, but I'm not sure. So that's got promise. But if you'll notice, all the groups, regardless of the bullet, they're all, you know, that 1 1/4, 1 1/2. So there's a couple things over the years I found with that too. That can be the barrel heat on the 3rd shot. I've had that where first 2 shots are always dialed in. The 3rd shot, the heat just gets to a point where it's sending that bullet a little bit differently. Not saying that's the case here. It could be me. It could be the rifle, could be the loads. We just don't know yet. But that's one thing to keep in mind when you have 2 shots that always look really good and then a flyer. We've had that here with a couple different loads now. We've had 2 tight and a flyer. Could be me, but that heat can be the issue on the 3rd shot. In both cases, the flyer was the 3rd shot. So that's worth noting. All right, probably one more group with these 175s. We'll probably call it a day. You know, guys, something to think about while we're doing this cooling before I send 3 more of those 175 grain partitions. And I've mentioned this in a recent video. I can't remember which one it was. One thing I have learned over the years too is rifles can be really picky between boat tails or flat base bullets. So the first 2 loads today, the Accubond and the 162 ELD-X, are boat tails. Now the Accubond is a moderate boat tail. It's not a real aggressive boat tail, but it is a boat tail. The 162 ELD-X is an aggressive boat tail. And then the third load, these 175 grain partitions, those are flat base. And again, we don't have enough data here to draw any conclusions, but I'll be keeping an eye on that. I've had rifles that were lights out with one or the other and did not like the other. And I think it's tied to, and some of you guys are more expert on this than I am, and I've had some comments that were really helpful on that. I think it's tied to how the barrel and the bullet seal and the type of pressure distribution the rifle puts on the back of that bullet as it's moving through the bore. I don't know, but it can for sure be a factor. We don't know if that's the case here yet, but we'll figure it out. All right, guys, last walk up of the day. I'm sure you're sick of all these little 1.5-minute walk up talks, but it just last 3 shots, 3 more of those 175 partitions. And I was working pretty hard there. I don't know, probably after this many rounds, recoils got me a little messed up. Definitely can tell you that age and eyesight is a factor. It's I have to work harder to be consistent than I did even just a few years ago. That catches up to you pretty fast. But let's see what happened here. That rifle feels great. I like the trigger from the factory. I'm probably not going to adjust it. They are adjustable. It's crisp. Yeah, maybe it's a little heavier. For hunting, I think it's just right. If I was just going to bench shoot this rifle, I think I'd lighten it up just a hair. But Tikkas are sweet, right? The feeding, the function, just everything is so good. And again, the glass on that VX5 HD is really clear, even for my old eyes. So I really like the setup. I have no doubt we'll end up dialing in a load that's just great for that rifle. But here we go. Let's see what happened with these last 3, and then we'll wrap it up. Well, guys, we have 2 in the same hole, and then we have that 1 out to the left. So that is really interesting. So I'm just grabbing this target here. We'll walk back and talk about that. It's early. Don't hold me to it. Oh, sorry about that, son. Don't hold me to it. In fact, let me switch over here. There. Don't hold me to it, guys, but this rifle could be one of those where the 3rd shot on a 3-shot group where you're trying to be, you know, consistently, not fast, but just move through the shots. This could be a rifle where that 3rd shot wants to creep out there. And that's not the end of the world at all. But to have 3 different groups today where the first 2 shots were 1/2 inch or less, we had 2 in the same hole there, and then we have a 3rd shot that gets away. Could be me, but it could also just be what this rifle's all about. So there's a few ways to play with that, right? We could just do a 3-shot group and just take a break in between all the shots and let it cool and see what happens there. But overall, what a great first day with this rifle. Nothing conclusive, which is kind of fun, right? It kind of would have sucked if we'd have had a 1/2 inch group with a couple of these loads, then Project Big 7 would be over. We don't want that. So we learned a little bit. We'll go back and I'll get this video posted and then kind of mull on it for a while and think about what the next steps are. And I'm looking forward to your thoughts. All right, guys, we're back to the truck. I'm going to get my gear put away, go get something to eat. Let's kind of summarize, guys, what all went on here. So ignore this and this. Those were the 50-yard zero. Okay. Then this was the first group with the 140 Accubond hand loads that I don't have data for, but I think I do. Okay. Then this was the second group of the 140 Accubond hand loads. Neither one of these got to an inch. Close, but not there. Then I shot the 162 ELD-X factory load Precision Hunter, and that group is real close to an inch. That's the best group we had of the day, real close. Then I shot this group right here of the 162 ELD-X factories, and it's awful. Had to be me. Okay. Then we jumped over here. We shot this group with the 175 Partition hand loads. I know these were the first two, and here we go with this third one out. And then this was the final group with the 175s. There's two in the same hole, and then one out here past an inch. So very interesting. I guess we put a total of what? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups, and we had 2. So we did shoot 20 rounds today. 20 rounds for this old guy out of a belted mag at the bench. That's enough. But I loved every second of it.